And the dominoes begin to fall. It looks like fresh off the press, a federal judge has ruled that copyrighted books are fair use for training an AI algorithm. For those of you who don't know, I am Dave, a 10-year intellectual property attorney dealing with everything from patents, trademarks, trade secrets, as well as copyrights. And I kind of been following along with this for a while now and said I'm going to continue to update you guys as we get rulings from the court. And it looks like the court has just ruled a favor in a major way for AI companies, for big tech companies. And to the contrary, this was a major blow to authors. Now, Meta, I know Mark Zuckerberg is somewhere, probably smoking a cigar or training or doing something that he likes to do, because he was too being sued by a plethora of authors for copyright infringement for using their books to train a Meta's AI algorithm. I forget what the LLM, the language learning model, was called. But again, he too was in a lawsuit for this, and it seems like this case from Anthropic, which we're going to pull up the article from CNBC News and go through it, this also affects him. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I've said this over and over again, I think out of all of the forms of copyrights, when you're talking about books, when you're talking about 2D pictures, when you're talking about music, when you're talking about movies, TV shows, sculptors, choreographic works, the two that are probably going to fall and not be as relevant, at least in my opinion, going forward, is books as well as 2D pictures, just because, man, this AI, Chat GPT, whatever you want to call it, you can pretty much have it create a picture based on you giving it prompts, or create a book based on you giving it prompts that I think ultimately is going to put, I don't want to say put the authors out of business, and as well as the illustrators, but it's going to be a big hit to how they earn a living. It seems like in this case, with these AI algorithms, you can have the algorithm or you can have the data. And the data in this case are the books. And it seems like the big tech companies, they have the AI, the algorithm or the LLMs, but they don't have the data, which in the book. So it seems like in this case, they were using the books unauthorized or without permission from the book authors to train the AI algorithms. It seems like once different authors got wind of this, they start suing the companies. They start suing Meta. In this case, they start suing Anthropic for copyright infringement. And it seems like the courts were ultimately deciding on this one. Now, I do think that this was a federal district court. And again, I'm going to pull up the article and go quickly through it here in a little bit. This was at a federal district court level. So this is definitely going to get appealed to the Court of Appeals and ultimately to the Supreme Court for them to decide. And I wholeheartedly believe that the Supreme Court will ultimately decide on this issue, as opposed to it being left to the courts, whether it's a district court or a Court of Appeals to rule in. But so far, at the district level, it was a win for the tech company. So let's pull up the article. As I'm pulling it up, please hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm, as well as hit that subscribe button to be a part of the IP community. Let me see if I can kind of pull it up like this. Okay, I think this is good. So this is fresh off the press. Federal judge rules copyrighted books are fair use for AI training. I can almost stop at that. But let's continue to see why the judge ruled that. A federal judge has sided with Anthropic in a major copyright ruling, declaring that artificial intelligence developers can train models using published books without author's consent. The decision filed Monday in a U.S. District Court in California sets a precedent that training AI systems on copyrighted works constitutes fair use. Though it doesn't guarantee other courts will follow, the federal judge ruling makes the case the first of dozens of ongoing copyright lawsuits to give an answer about fair use in the context of generative AI. And this is a good point. So this is why I think this is going to make it up to the Supreme Court. Typically, all cases don't make it up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court typically can handpick the cases that they want to hear. And a big part of them hand-picking cases is if different courts and different jurisdictions are coming out on different ends of the spectrum. Supreme Court wants a unified ruling. So if you have 4 or 5 district courts in California or Arizona or Nevada coming out one way, and then you have courts in Ohio or Michigan or in Indiana, Illinois coming out a different way, you having all these different decisions. Ultimately, the Supreme Court wants a unified decision so that everybody kind of knows how to go about things. And obviously, with intellectual properties on a federal level. So in these federal cases at the district court, coming out on different sides, and maybe it happened in a similarly, which it will happen similarly at the Court of Appeals level, because they're based on regions. Out west, you have, I think that's the Ninth Circuit. They're going to kind of be similar to what the district court is ruling in California or in those kind of regions. And similarly, in the Midwest, I forget, I don't know offhand what that Court of Appeals kind of represents in the Midwest, but they're probably going to come out something similar to district courts in that region. So when you have, I think they call them circuit splits, when different courts of appeals in different regions are at odds on different issues, that's when the Supreme Court will take up an issue and ultimately rule one way or another, so that it's a consistency, and people like you and I or other authors or tech companies for that matter knows how to kind of go about a situation. So that's why I believe that this will get to the Supreme Court ultimately, and they're going to rule, and who knows what they're going to say. But so far, this is what we have. Let's continue on here. It's a question that has been raised by creatives across various industries for years, since generative AI tools exploded into the mainstream, allowing users to easily produce art from models trained on a copyrighted work. Again, they're not trying to copyright these works for no reason. They want you to prompt create me a story, and it's going to create a story. And, if I can get books for free or for a fraction of the cost, then why would I kind of pay for an author or pay for a book by this particular author and have to wait for him to continue to come up with the storyline and write a book? If I want to read a different book, I would imagine that authors, even if it's a good author, are not putting out books every month. Whereas, man, you can prompt ChatGPT or whatever to create a book every month, and it's going to be satisfying to the user. So that's why, in my opinion, in the undertone of all this is a big issue. So again, the AI models may not produce a book exactly, and I say may not loosely. They may not produce a book exactly as a particular author will write it. However, I think the speed and the cost at which they can do this, I think is going to essentially put authors out of business, at least in my opinion, or at least it'll be a substantial hit to the artists making money or the authors making money. Let's see here. Copyright lawsuits, media companies, music labels, and authors since 2023. Artists have signed multiple open letters urging government officials and AI developers to constrain the unauthorized use of copyrighted works. In recent years, companies have also increasingly reached licensing deals with AI developers to dictate terms of the use of their. So it seems like music companies, they're trying to get out in front of it. Alsop ruled on a lawsuit filed in August by 3 authors who claimed that Anthropic ignored copyright protections when it pirated millions of books and digitized purchased books to feed into its LLM, large language models, which help train them to generate human-like text responses. The copies used to train specific LLMs were justified as fair use. Also wrote, so it seems like the judge, who is also is saying that it's fair use. Every factor but the nature of the copyrighted work favors this result. So it seems like the nature of the copyrighted work favored the artist, but the other ones, transformative, I guess the novelty of it is a couple more favored the tech company. The technology at issue was among the most transformative many of us will see in our lifetime. His decision said Anthropic's use of the books to train its models, including versions of its flagship AI model Claude, was exceedingly transformative enough to fall under the fair use. So transformative is one of the fair use factors. Fair use, as defined by the Copyright Act, takes into account 4 factors: the purpose, what kind of copyright work is used, how much is used, and what's the value to the market. I don't know how the judge didn't think that the market value of the original work was not going to come out on an author, should not have come out on an author's. Let's see the purpose of it. I think the purpose too. I'm surprised at this as I'm looking at the factors in real time. But hey, reasonable minds can differ. We are pleased that the court recognized that using works to train LLMs was transformative. Seems like that's a statement from Anthropic. Consistent with the copyright's purpose in enabling creativity and fostering scientific progress. And to me, I think that's a bad decision, but let's keep going for a little bit longer. The judge said that all of the author's work contain expressive elements, earning them stronger copyright protection, which is a factor that put it against fair use, although not enough to sway the overall ruling. That's crazy. He added that while making digitized copies of the purchased books was fair use, downloading pirated copies for free didn't constitute fair use. So he said that making digital copies was fair use, downloading pirated copies. So it seemed like he at least came out victorious for the authors and saying that, hey, they have to pay for the book. The AI company or the tech company have to pay for the books. They can't use pirated versions and digitize those, and that be fair use. Okay, so at least that's somewhat of a win for the authors. But aside from the millions of pirated copies, the judge wrote copying entire works to train AI models was especially reasonable because the models didn't reproduce those copies for public access, and because doing so did not and will not displace demand for the original books. Man, I just think I think he's missing a point. I don't think the point is for them to produce something that's exactly the same. It's more so taking what people like from popular artists and being able to produce something that's similar at a higher rate, and therefore stimulating the purchaser, us, you and I, the purchaser of these books. And now we could just go to ChatGPT or use that model as opposed to going to the author. So I do think that ultimately that displaces the demand, not of the original books, but in a roundabout way, even of the original books. His ruling said that although AI developers can legally train AI models on copyrighted works without permission, they should obtain those works through legitimate means. So essentially, they got to pay for them. Despite siding with the AI company for fair use, the judge wrote that Anthropic will still face the trial for the pirated copy. So based on the stuff that they stole, they got to go to court over it. So what do you guys think? I think that this is a little bit suspect on from the judge's standpoint. And I think this is a major blow to authors. And really, this is the beginning. This is only the tip of the iceberg. Like I said, ultimately, this will make its way up to the Supreme Court. But I think this is the tip of the iceberg for these copyrighted works. I do think that, illustrators, to a lesser extent, musicians, I think TV shows, people who produce films or content, I think ultimately they're going to be affected as a result of this. So kind of let me know what you guys think. Maybe I'm off. Maybe you guys disagree with me. Let me know in the comment section. Meanwhile, I'm going to continue to bring you guys the latest and the greatest on what the courts are talking about with regard to tech companies, AI, who have these large LLMs being able to use copyrighted work. It seems like at this point in time, you can't steal it, but to the extent that you purchase the book, you can use it to train your AI model. So let me know what you guys think. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Please hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm, as well as hit the subscribe button to be a part of the IP community. I'll check you guys out next time. Peace.